Let's kick things off with a series of big numbers, starting off with 7.4%. That's the rate of joblessness in the country for the month of October. That translates to around 3.5 million unemployed Filipinos, and that's an improvement from the 8.9% reading in September. While the easing of restrictions may have helped more Filipinos to land jobs, the Labor Department says we're still ways away from pre-pandemic levels in the job market.
Taking off from that, our second big number is 4.2%. That's the inflation print for November, marking 3 straight months of price pressures easing. Food inflation was lower last month, but higher utility and transport costs offset the deceleration. Good evening, I'm Maricel Halili.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Improvements in these indicators seem to be pointing to an economy on the mend. Optimism is high, even for the World Bank, which now sees recovery gathering pace.
The Philippines has also finally climbed out of last place in Nikkei's COVID-19 ranking. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez has the big story.
The Philippines jumped from 103rd to 57th place in the latest COVID-19 recovery index by Japanese newspaper Nikkei Asia. That's a total of 46 spots in a span of 1 month. The index measures the country's progress on infection control, vaccine rollout, and mobility.
Is a clear indication that we have successfully contained the highly transmissible Delta variant. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Indeed, the economy is showing signs of a recovery. Just released figures from the Statistics Agency show inflation for November came in at 4.2%. That's the lowest in 4 months. The PSA also reported that unemployment slipped to 7.4% in October, down from 8.9 in the previous month.
Makikita natin talaga ang effect itong month ng November. But we are already seeing a reduction in unemployment rate from September to October 2021, and that is significant.
In line with this, the World Bank expects the country to grow at least 5.3% this year, higher than its initial estimate.
One, it comes from the firms that have closed. We have this May 2021 firm survey that was done, and it shows that around 10% of firms in the Philippines have already closed due to the pandemic.
The World Bank noted that the Omicron variant added a layer of uncertainty to its projections and stressed the need for progress in vaccinations. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
So are we out of the woods? Is this the start of the economic bounce back? For more on this, we have tonight One News business and economy editor Regina Lay. Regina, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, Robbie. Great to be back here.
So certainly some encouraging numbers, but Nograles says light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, what do you make of that statement?
Well, I think we have to take the statement in full. And the second part of his statement, remember, goes something like, the only way we can get to the end is if we carefully watch our steps. And I think that's at the core of this all, right? Because when you think about it, there's no country in the world that's really out of the woods right now. As for there's also the point about the Philippines jumping 46 spots in the Nikkei ranking. That's really an achievement, I have to say, especially since it happened in a span of just 1 month. To recap, the Nikkei largely measures 3 things. Social mobility, infection management, and vaccine rollout. Those are 3 very crucial factors. And we are seeing signs of improvement on that. And also remember that the goal of the IATF all along has been to downgrade NCR and surrounding areas to alert level 1 by January. So that puts us right on track. I will point out one last thing, though, which is that a couple of months ago, when we were at the very bottom of this Nikkei ranking, the government was largely discrediting the report. They were saying that, no, it doesn't factor in country-specific context, et cetera, et cetera. But now they seem to have done a
Yeah.
180 and started embracing it. So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Robbie.
that's changes in government statements. But speaking of the Nikkei index, there's a lot of public carping on that. Certainly, a lot of economists also on the negative side and really warning about the prospects or the limitations of it for the Philippines. What are those economists saying now?
I think most economists are cautiously optimistic, meaning they're a bit more positive on the prospects of the Philippines. But we have a little bit more room to breathe. But at the same time, no one is celebrating just yet. Again, coming back to the Nikkei COVID-19 ranking, to put it into context, the Philippines is now ranked higher than countries like Singapore and Thailand and Vietnam. Singapore, remember, used to be the model country for COVID-19 response and management, and look where they are now. So it keeps bringing us back to the idea that no country is out of the woods until all countries are out of the woods, right? And a lot of the economists are on wait and see mode as well as far as this Omicron variant is concerned. I think there's still so much that's not known about this variant. I think they're quite wary. One bad set of data could change everything for everyone, as we've seen in the past. But in general, though, places like the World Bank, S&P, Moody's, they're all generally more positive towards the prospects of the Philippines. They're saying that the economy is a bit more resilient than they thought. But again, the biggest risk is still Omicron and how it plays out in the real world. Robbie.
Okay, thanks, Reg. That was Regina Lay, One News Business and Economy Editor. The optimism on the country's recovery prospects comes at a time when infections have been on the downtrend. Today alone, caseload is at its lowest since July last year. The health department has logged more than 350 new COVID-19 infections today. The caseload still stands at above 2.8 million, some 13,000 of which are still active. Despite the drop in infections, Nikkei Asia noted that the country's fatality rate still stands at over 9%, the second highest in the world. Just today, the virus killed at least 92 more patients, pushing the death toll to nearly 49,600.
These are the other big stories tonight. With the threat of the Omicron variant still present, the health department would rather maintain status quo rather than ease to the loosest restriction in the country. An 8th petition has been lodged to block the presidential bid of Bongbong Marcos. His kababayans from the Ilocanos region filed another disqualification case against the aspirant. And we're all feeling it. Mornings and nights are colder in several parts of the country, and PAGASA expects it to last until February. This big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. Just as the Philippine healthcare system recovers from the past COVID surges, the threat of the Omicron variant emerges.
However, how ready are we when every surge takes a toll on resources, especially frontliners? Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro with this report.
The new Omicron variant brings so many uncertainties to the table, and the healthcare workers are worried that the new variant could bring in a surge bigger than what we can handle.
Kasi mas mata-target nito yung mga hindi bakunado, no? Kasi sila yung walang proteksyon.
The Omicron variant has already been detected in almost 50 countries just 2 weeks after its first detection. Because of this, the Octa Research Group thinks that the Omicron could be at least 2 times more contagious than the Delta variant. According to the World Health Organization, a study from South Africa showed that the Omicron has 3 times bigger reinfection rate than Delta. The Philippines still has no reported case of Omicron, but local health experts agree that it's just a matter of time before it enters the country. Authorities are locating and monitoring 253 travelers from South Africa, one of whom turned positive for COVID-19.
Wala pa tayong resulta ng sequencing.
The country's average healthcare utilization rate is at 20%, or classified as safe. At this number, Limpin said that the healthcare system has already recovered from the last surge and is ready for the next. However, each new surge puts an even greater strain on the hospital resources and personnel. Limpin notes a steady migration of experienced healthcare professionals abroad.
Ang matitira dito sa atin ay medyo bago, therefore hindi pa masyadong experience. Tapos once na naman magkaroon na naman sila ng experience, aalis na naman sila.
The IATF is considering downgrading the capital regions to Alert Level 1. But Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said staying under Alert Level 2 might be the best.
Unang-una, ang mobility, tataas na naman ngayong kapaskuhan. Alam natin yan, no? At meron nagmamadyang o banta ng Omicron variant. So mahihira, mas konservatibo tayo.
Limpin adds that with the threat of the Omicron variant, it's still better to err on the side of safety. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
The threat of the Omicron variant is becoming more real as countries nearby report their first cases of the new variant. Singapore has confirmed its first 2 cases. Both are passengers who arrived from South Africa on December 1. The 2 are fully vaccinated. They have mild symptoms. They're currently recovering in isolation wards. Vaccine developer Novavax, meanwhile, said it could start making a COVID-19 jab tailored for the Omicron variant by January next year. Novavax also intends to test the antibodies of those previously inoculated with their vaccine to see if they can neutralize Omicron. And Octa Research fellow Father Nick Austriaco says that while the Omicron variant is more transmissible, it is likely less deadly than Delta. He also urged those unvaccinated to get their COVID-19 jabs as they could be the most vulnerable to the variant once it reaches the country.
Health workers in the metro are excited to celebrate the holidays as medical facilities, one by one, report 0 COVID cases. Jenny Dongon shows us how things have changed in NCR hospitals.
Empty beds, unused oxygen tanks, and a quiet emergency room. This is unfamiliar sight at the Marikina Doctors Hospital and Medical Center. After months of chaos due to a surge in COVID cases, the facility no longer houses a COVID case.
COVID kasi namin, we are able to accommodate until 12. Minsan nag-over kami doon. So, tapos yung ER namin, maximum of 4. Puno yun. Parati. Nung surge, ganun kagrabe.
After grappling with fatigue and burnout for almost 2 years, medical workers are now breathing a sigh of relief.
Siksikan yung dami, yung pila sa baba. Puno na kami sa taas, and then dumarating din sa times na nag-double bed na.
There are times wala kaming pasyente sa COVID. Ganun kaganda na. Hindi katulad dati, full. Minsan sa ER pati puno.
For hospital workers, this means a merrier Christmas. As a symbol of hope, doctors and staff put up Christmas decorations inside the facility. They set up a Candyland theme. Empty vial bottles and syringes were used to make lanterns, while cotton balls and paper plates were used to form cupcakes and donuts. Despite improvements in the number of patients at the Marikina Doctors, medical workers say they are not letting their guard down, especially with the looming threat of the Omicron variant. At least for the upcoming holidays, health workers are looking forward to spending more time with their families than they did last year.
Mas nakakagalaw kami na maayos. Tsaka medyo, yung na-overcome na rin namin yung takot namin dun sa COVID eh. And siguro, naka-help na rin siguro yung vaccine, na mayroong vaccine kasi. Kaya medyo mas, mas nakakagalaw ng maayos.
So sa New Year, yung medyo nilulook forward talaga nila na magsama-sama kaming lahat.
The National Kidney Transplant Institute and the Makati Medical Center have also reported 0 new COVID admissions since Friday. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, China is threatening to retaliate should the United States push through with its diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says the boycott is tantamount to grandstanding. China says this could affect their dialogue and cooperation on important areas. The U.S. says it would not attend the Games in protest over human rights abuses among minority Muslims in the Xinjiang region. Back in the Philippines, samahan ng basketball ng Pilipinas President Al Pandillo has gotten a fresh term as head of the federation. His re-election paves the way for the federation's preparations as host of the FIBA World Cup in 2023. Senator Sani Angara and Representative Roby Puno were retained as chairman and vice chairman, while PBA chairman Ricky Vargas was named vice president. Manny V. Pangilinan is still chairman emeritus of the Board of Trustees. This set of officials will serve until 2024.
Time for another quick break. When we return, another petition has been filed to disqualify Bongbong Marcos' presidential bid. Petitions against Marcos Jr. now totals to 8. Death toll from the eruption of Mount Semeru has increased to 22. Indonesian President Joko Widodo has promised to bolster evacuation efforts. And finding it hard to take a shower lately? We can't blame you. But the struggle is about to get more real as PAGASA projects temperature to drop further in the coming days. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. The public should brace for even more bone-chilling cold in the coming days, according to PAGASA.
The Weather Bureau adds that temperature in the country may continue to plummet until the Amihan exits next year. Marian Enriquez with the story.
The country has officially entered the Amihan, or Northeast monsoon season, which will bring cold and dry wind. This cold weather can already be felt in Metro Manila.
Sobrang lamig pag nasa biyahe, nakamotor. Agligo sa madaling araw. Oo. Halos mapapasok ka na ng lamig.
Kailangan mo talaga naka-jacket na nakakumot.
The PAGASA Quezon City Science Garden also recorded the lowest temperature yesterday at 20.2 degrees Celsius. In Baguio, the temperature dropped to 11.4 degrees Celsius on Sunday. PAGASA said colder days can be expected in the coming days. The amihan season, meanwhile, is expected to last until February.
Yung talagang lowest temperature ng every amihan season na nagsisimula ng November and ends the February the following year, karaniwan ay tatala po natin sa buwan ng January at February.
During the amihan season in 2020 to 2021, the lowest temperature recorded was in February 20 this year, when Baguio logged 9 degrees Celsius and 19.3 degrees Celsius in NCR. For this year's amihan season, PAGASA estimates that the lowest possible temperature would be 18 to 19 degrees Celsius in Metro Manila and 8 to 10 degrees Celsius in Baguio City.
According to health experts, it is normal for people to get common cold or other upper respiratory tract infections, especially during this cold weather. But they are reminding the public to not be complacent and to immediately get tested for COVID once you experience flu-like symptoms.
Symptoms of flu and COVID-19 are very similar, and they can only be distinguished through testing.
Importante na malaman natin na this is just really a simple flu o simpleng sipon lang, na hindi COVID kasi iba ang COVID.
Medical experts also stress the importance of following minimum health standards, especially this holiday season. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Here are the other election-related stories we're watching. Presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos Jr. faces yet another disqualification case seeking to bar his candidacy. The group with Noonga Ilocano, Marcos' townsman from Ilocos, cited his 1995 tax case conviction as grounds for disqualification. The said case is now the 8th petition filed against Marcos Jr.'s presidential bid. Marcos' spokesperson, attorney Vic Rodriguez, said all these petitions are being addressed by the team's legal group. He says they view these filings as nuisance cases and that petitioners should instead respect the Filipinos' right to choose their next leader. And former MMDA chairman Bayani Fernando is gunning a return as Mariquina's mayor. He tells One News all politics is local, that he wants to finish the projects he already started, once allegedly blocked by now Marikina Mayor Marcy Chodoro. Fernando adds his endorsement of Chodoro was his biggest mistake.
And here are the other big stories around the world. Indonesian President Joko Widodo promises to bolster evacuation and repair efforts after visiting the Mount Semeru disaster zone on Tuesday. According to Widodo, around 2,000 families need to be relocated immediately. The more than 3,000-meter-high volcano erupted on Saturday, shooting a towering cloud of ash and sending pyroclastic flows onto villages below. At least 22 people have died, 27 went missing, thousands have been displaced. Rohingya refugees from Myanmar are suing Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook, for $150 billion. This is for allegedly not taking action against anti-Rohingya speech that fueled violence in the region. The U.S. class action complaint was filed in California on Monday. It argues that the company failed to police content on its platform, contributing to real-world violence against the ethnic group. Meta has yet to comment on the matter, but they had previously admitted that they were too slow to prevent misinformation and hate, close quote, in Myanmar, despite taking some steps.
TV5's very own Maha Salvadoran veteran actor Mon Confiado walked the red carpet for their newest action thriller movie, Arisaka. Maha brings to life the character of a policewoman who has to retrace the route of the Bataan Death March to escape her captors. But the mysteries unfolded along her journey.
Nakakatuwa. Parang mas nakaka-excite pang gumawa ng maraming pelikula.
Nabigyan ng pagkakataon yung mga ganitong klaseng genre na at least hindi puro love story ang mga pelikula natin.
Like her character in the film, the actress has always chosen roles that empower women.
Dito makikita po natin na ang mga babae ngayon ay may boses na kasi mas pinapahalaga na sila sa ating society.
Critics, meanwhile, said that this is the Philippines' answer to South Korea's globally acclaimed Squid Game and Hellbound. Viewers can watch Arisaka on Netflix starting December 9. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Have you ever wondered how many people were needed to create the world's largest human Christmas tree? How about the longest chain of sleds? The Guinness Book of World Records has all the answers.
In the spirit of the holidays, we'll take a look at some of the most extraordinary records and events that celebrate the Christmas season. The largest human Christmas tree was made in India and consists of more than 4,000 participants, mostly made up of school children back in 2015. The longest chain of sleds was meanwhile recorded in Austria in 2017 with a whopping 508 participants. The chain of sleds traveled down the slope of 600 meters.
Meanwhile, an Australian local set the record for the most lights on an artificial Christmas tree with more than 518,000. In Latvia, an e-commerce company constructed the world's largest Rube Goldberg or chain reaction type machine to switch on the Christmas lights in Riga back in 2016. The chain reaction consisted of 412 individual mechanical steps which took 10 minutes to run, making it the world's most complicated way possible to turn on a switch.
Galing.
All of that to flip a switch, pero that's worth the wait.
Yes.
Ready ka na ba magbagyo?
Oo, di ba? Sabi ko nga, naghahanap na nga ako. Baka may mga bakanting hotel pa. Pero parang it's difficult to look for a vacant hotel
Pero
now.
20 degrees dito, pwede na rin.
Pwede na. Mahirap na mag-shower in the morning. 18 days to go before Christmas. Tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, mga kapatid. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
On behalf of Gretchen Ho, I'm Maricel Halili. We are One News. Good evening.